Okay, without any further ado, let's plunge into the world of government benefits, everyone's favorite topic. Actually, lately I've been meeting a lot of families that really their adult children are eligible for benefits, but they just haven't applied because it's such a pain. And I understand that, but it's a good idea if you are eligible for any benefits to apply. It's your tax dollars. You've paid into the system one way or the other. And if you or your relatives are eligible, you should definitely apply. Even with the bureaucratic red tape and the hassle, it is usually worth it in the long run. So today we're going to cover some key government benefits, why you might need a special needs trust, and then we're going to get a little more granular, what are pooled special needs trusts, and then what is our special needs trust. And then at the end, we're just going to have a little bit about the CalABLE savings accounts. Let me just say, I think they're a great tool for anyone with a disability who was diagnosed before the age of 26. And you just sign up online and you only need $25 to open one up. So if you don't stick around to the end, keep in mind that opening a CalABLE savings account is a good and easy thing to do. Okay, so what is the main issue here? What we're really trying to do is figure out how a person with disabilities can either become eligible or keep their eligibility for as many government benefits as possible, and then also be able to get money from, let's say, a legal settlement or an inheritance. And the government benefit programs don't always make it easy. So the two main tools to accomplish this are going to be special needs trust and the ABLE accounts. So government benefit programs often have both asset limits, which sometimes they call resources, and income, which is usually monthly income. And income could be either earned from employment or it could be unearned, a gift of money, alimony, investment income. All of those things are considered to be unearned income, mostly by the federal government. And government benefits were most of them were set up a long time ago, and they barely get people to the federal poverty level. So applying for and keeping the government benefits is super important, but often it's not going to be enough to have any kind of decent life, especially in Southern California and most places in California. So on the left-hand side of the screen are what we call need-based benefits. The government's going to be looking at income levels, sometimes asset levels as well. And those programs are the federal one is SSI, and the state one is Medi-Cal. SSI, we'll talk more about later, is that monthly cash grant. And Medi-Cal is health insurance for poor and disabled of any age. Medi-Cal is California's Medicaid program. So you'll hear a lot of discussion about what's happening to Medicaid. Are there going to be changes to Medicaid? So those all have the potential of impacting us here in California with our Medi-Cal program. On the right-hand side is Social Security, and this is disability, Social Security disability insurance. And then also we have Medicare, which is our health insurance program for people over the age of 65. Many younger people with disabilities also become eligible for Medicare. And so the more of these programs that you're enrolled in, the better. So one really important benefit you might not know about is something called disabled adult child. also known as the childhood disabled beneficiary. So this is a federal benefit coming out of Washington, D.C., out of the Social Security Administration. And what the program is really all about is quite noble. It's saying if there was a parent who worked all the necessary quarters and is now pulling Social Security retirement, and they have an adult disabled child, it would probably be really helpful for that family if that adult child with a disability would be able to get some government benefits based on the working record of the parent. So the bullet points describe what the situation is. The child had to have been diagnosed before the age of 22 with a lifelong chronic disability, such as autism or quadriplegic, or a serious mental health condition like schizophrenia. And then the child has to be above the age of 18 in order to receive the benefits. And the payments don't start until the parent retires and starts to pull their own Social Security retirement. Then that disabled adult child can get 50% of the parent's Social Security. The parent keeps getting 100% of whatever it is that they're entitled to. And then after the parent sadly passes away, that adult child can get 75% of the parent's Social Security retirement benefit. So let's just say John is the father. When John retires, he's getting $1,200. He has a daughter named Sally, who was diagnosed at the age of 5 with cerebral palsy and intellectual disability. Sally is now 20. So when John retires and gets that $1,200, Sally will be able to get $600 a month. And then many years from now, when John passes away, Sally will get $900 a month. So one of the best benefits of this SSDI is after 24 months of receiving SSDI, that beneficiary is entitled to Medicare, even if they are under the age of 65. So I don't want to go too much into that, but it's a really important benefit. And any of you parents out there that are getting ready to retire and get Social Security, be sure to check that little box that says, do you have an adult disabled child? So what is SSI? That's a federal program coming again out of Washington, D.C., supplemental security income. Right now, you can earn up to $1,550 working or any kind of employment and still get SSI. The cash benefit for most people in California is going to max out at $1,182. Most of that is coming from the federal government. And then California is one of the few states that adds to the federal government. And you must have limited income and resources. So you have to earn less than $1,500 a month, $1,550. And here's the big if. You can only have $2,000 in the bank or in a checking account or in bonds or stocks or Bitcoin. You can only have $2,000 at any one time in order to get SSI. So, of course, that's a ridiculous amount. So that's why people end up using special needs trusts and ABLE accounts. The good thing about SSI, a really, really good thing, is it has this automatic linkage to Medi-Cal. Actually, federally, it has an automatic linkage to Medicaid in any state. So as soon as someone starts getting SSI, they should get a Medicaid card in the mail from whatever state they're living in. And there's many different types of Medi-Cal, and many of them have a share of cost or some other monthly premium. But this kind of Medicaid does not. So whenever possible, you want to get SSI and you want to keep SSI just so you can get that really good form of healthcare through Medi-Cal. So when they go to look at your SSI determination, they're going to ask a lot of questions about assets, resources. You're allowed to have a house you live in, one car. You can have a small life insurance policy. You can have a burial plot, household goods and effects. But again, you're not allowed to have more than $2,000 in your name or social security number, or $3,000 for a child or for a couple. There's been many attempts to change that amount from 2,000 to 10,000. They still haven't passed. Who knows? We keep hope alive. It may still be increased to $10,000 at one point in time. SSI defines income in two different ways. Unearned income, that's money, kind of passive money that you get from annuities, pensions, alimony, support payments, any kind of legal settlement or payment from other government programs. Earned income, that's any kind of work done, any kind of employment, whether you're doing gigs, whether you're a W-2 employee or a 1099 or you're self-employed, that would be earned income. SSI has this very outdated rule that thankfully is changing in two significant ways in just a few months. But the idea was that the government said, we're going to give you a check every month, and it's supposed to cover your food, your shelter, and your basic utilities. And if anybody else, including your special needs trust, pays for any of those things, we're going to reduce how much you get in your monthly grant. And the penalty is 1/3 of the federal share plus $20. But the very good news is there's major changes coming October 1st in both the food category and the rent category. And you guys are the first ones to see this, our brand new slide. So the very good news is food is no longer going to be counted as an in-kind payment if any third party or community agency pays for groceries or in restaurants. So this is great news for people who live in California, because we all know how expensive it is to buy food in the grocery store or eat out. So that penalty is going away. And then the rent subsidy definition is changing. This is a little more complicated. Basically, if someone is going to be paying the market rate for rent, that amount will no longer be deducted from their monthly SSI check. But if they're paying less than the presumed market value, they could still have that 1/3 reduction of the federal share of SSI. So it gets complicated. I have a link here to a really good article that explains it. And I encourage you to, if you or someone else is on SSI, I encourage you to read this article and explain how this rent subsidy is changing. What is Medi-Cal? So that is Medicaid in California. So it's going to pay, of course, for medical care, in-home caregivers, long-term care. Medi-Cal and Medicaid are the only government program that pays for nursing homes. No other government program pays for nursing homes beyond 100 days post-hospitalization. So for a lot of people with elderly relatives, getting and keeping that Medi-Cal becomes super important. Also, Medi-Cal pays for prescription meds as long as it's on the formulary, and also hospice care, end of life. Also, durable medical equipment, things like wheelchairs or pumps. So Medi-Cal is very important for most people with disabilities. You can have both Medi-Cal and Medicare. That's called dual eligible or Medi-Medi. You can also have private insurance, like from an employer, and then Medi-Cal is secondary. Medi-Cal is always going to be secondary or tertiary because the reimbursement provider rates are the lowest of all the programs out there. And then for many people with disabilities, staying in their homes is a huge priority. Um, and so one important way to stay in your home and not have to go to a nursing home is to use something called IHSS, In-Home Supportive Services. This is a California only program. This is not a federal program, although other states have somewhat similar programs. You have to be on Medi-Cal in order to get IHSS. It's administered through each county's Department of Social Services, DPSS. In LA County, the rate is now $17.50 an hour, and it is slated to increase. I think in December it's going up to $18 an hour. The county Department of Social Services comes out to the home and does a formal assessment and decides how many hours a month are needed. And that's going to be based on the activities of daily living. So it's very basic activities. It's things like getting out of bed, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, using the toilet, making food, not more complicated, what they call instrumental aspects of living. So their medicine management is one of the things they definitely look at. So based on each person's needs, everyone gets a different number of hours. The maximum is 283, and that's with protective supervision, meaning the person can't be left alone because they would be a danger to themselves or others. And the good thing is family members can be paid caregivers. And this is a little timeline showing how benefits can change, start and end and change over the lifetime of someone with a disability. Whoops. So some people who have qualifying diagnoses are regional center clients, autism, intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, severe epilepsy, or a condition resembling one of those four. And that is a lifetime benefit. And then we have Medi-Cal, which could start at any time and could also become a lifetime benefit. SSI usually starts at age 18. And then SSDI, that's based on the parent's work record. And then we have Medicare. SSI, people in California who get SSI and in-home supportive services can also get food stamps. That's called CalFresh. We like to name everything a little different in California. If disabled adult children live at home, they have to be over the age of 22 to apply. And the income level is a little higher than for some other programs. It's 200% of federal poverty level instead of 100% or 150%. Most people aren't getting a whole lot of money, somewhere between 100 and 150 a month, but every little bit can help. And other good news, a big change is in California, the Medi-Cal asset limit is gone, but they are still looking at your income levels. So that means you can have a lot of money in the bank and still qualify for Medi-Cal. The problem is if you are living off of that investment income and that investment income is high on a monthly basis, you might not qualify. And so here's the levels based on 138% of the poverty level. And yeah, they also look at income from property. So any kind of commercial or tenants rent is counted in that equation. All right, I'm going to pause here and see where we are.
We've got some questions. Is there a written social security requirement to inform them that a special needs trust has been established for a disabled person?
Yes, absolutely. And if people establish the pooled special needs trust with us, we do that written notification within 10 days.
If the adult child was on SSI and SSDI and had Medicare, Medi-Cal, then applies for DAC, will Medi-Medi continue as uninterrupted? No 24-month waiting period?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think so.
Would you clarify SSI income restrictions for parents of a disabled child as opposed to the child's own income?
So under the age of 18, the child is considered the financial responsibility of parents. So the government looks at assets and income from both parents. Doesn't matter if they're married or divorced. Once they turn 18, that person is considered to be an adult. Doesn't matter if they're severely disabled. So after the age of 18, they're not allowed to ask about the parents' income or parents' savings. But here's a pro tip. If your disabled child above the age of 18 is living with you and on SSI or wants to apply for SSI, they need to pay rent. You need to draw up a formal rental, arrangement like you would for anybody renting a room in your house. And every month you would transfer money from the SSI check for that adult child into the parent's checking.
That looks like that's where we are with questions. So keep going, and I'm
Okay,
sure they'll keep coming in.
anybody have any follow-up to what I said? Um, the one, Julia, your adult child, I guess I'm curious about how your adult child's already getting both SSI and SSDI. Julia, was the adult child working and has their own work record?
Yes, my son worked for a very part-time basis for more than 10 years for a
Okay,
family friend. So he
okay,
gets something like $250 a month.
okay. So in that case, it sounds like once you apply for the DAC, that amount will sounds like it'll increase.
Yeah, but I don't know if he'll get the one he is entitled to on his own as well as the DAC. I did hear that, but haven't been able to confirm it.
I don't think he'll get both. I think it's going to
Okay.
be one or the other because it's based on somebody's wage, somebody's work record. So I
Mhm.
so I know like if there's two different parents, you have to pick one of the parents' work records.
Well, I think
So
Social Security picks for you. They look at the two and
yes, they do
they
pick
give
for
you the
you.
higher. And then if one of you retires first, but then the other retires later, it can change.
That's
Or
correct.
even at death, I think that they can pick which one is higher.
Yes.
Okay.
Julia, we're ready to promote you.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay, I've just been doing a lot of homework. Okay,
No, I
continue.
like it.
Sorry.
I like it.
Okay.
We may have a job for you on our volunteer speakers bureau.
Mhm.
Anyway, if you find out different, that if you find out that he's able to keep his own SSDI, please let me know because I'm curious about that.
Okay, I will find out in about 6 months and I will email you.
Perfect. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Aren't the income limits different for parents than for children? Well, it's just 3,000 as opposed. Oh yeah, the income limits are different than parents for children. The asset limit is 3,000 as opposed to 2,000. I don't know what the income limits for parents are off the top of my head, but that's a good question. Can you repeat if there is a requirement to report to SSI, even if there's no benefits being distributed? No, you don't really need you if there's no money in there, you don't need to report it. But as soon as there's even, you know, I would say as soon as there's even, $10 in there, as soon as there's any money, I would definitely report it just to fulfill the government requirement. Okay, I'm gonna jump back in. Uh, all right. So we talked about all those benefits. Now the question is, how do we keep all those benefits? So one of the key tools is a special needs trust. It's a legal instrument that is designed to provide a person with a disability with the assets to enhance the quality of life while being able to keep all those means tested government benefits. So there are, of course, a few caveats. Money in a special needs trust has to be used pretty much exclusively slash primarily for the benefit of the beneficiary. So in other words, if you buy a big TV for the house in which the beneficiary lives, other people can watch the TV. But you cannot use money in the special needs trust to buy a big TV for grandma who lives in a different location. In fact, in general, you cannot use money in a special needs trust to gift anyone else, and you also cannot use it for charitable donations. Money in a special needs trust, once they're established, they are irrevocable, so they cannot be broken, because if they could be broken, then the beneficiary could have access to cash. That would be unearned income, and that could cause them to lose their SSI eligibility. Also, there's new Section 8 rules under something called HOTMA, HOTMA, and those new HOTMA rules really enforce that any trust to be excluded from Section 8 counting must be irrevocable. The good news is special needs trusts let the beneficiary keep all those government benefits, also have the benefits of the money that's put into the trust, plus any investment income that comes about from those assets that are being held in the trust. Every now and again, I get a little stuck. Let's see. Here we go. There's two main kinds of special needs trust, first party and third party. So everybody here today, you really want to plan ahead and do the third party. The reason why is because there's no Medi-Cal payback. With the first party, it's considered to be self-settled. The person who gets money in their own social security number creates a trust for themselves. So Medi-Cal says, we've been spending a lot of money on you in the hospitals, on medication, in-home supportive services. If they're regional center, a lot of regional center services are being paid by something called a Medicaid waiver. And you don't even know it. It's all kind of happening in the background. But sadly, once the beneficiary passes away, the California State Medi-Cal office is keeping very good track, and the Medi-Cal recovery office comes calling and wants to be paid back for all the services and treatments and medications that were paid out to the beneficiary throughout their lifetimes. So you really want to plan ahead and do a third party, which means parents and grandparents have to plan ahead. After someone dies, you can't retroactively create a special needs trust. So if grandma always said, I really want to create a special needs trust for my darling grandson, Eli, but unfortunately, grandma never puts that in writing. And then grandma passes away, and Eli is one of 4 grandkids who gets a quarter of grandma's estate. Eli then inherits directly and would have to do the first party trust with that Medi-Cal payback. Even if grandma really wanted to create the special needs trust for Eli, but just never got around to doing it. So professional trustees versus family trustees. So the best practice is to have a corporate or licensed professional be the trustee of the funds that are in a special needs trust. That could be a bank, a law firm, a commercial trust company. And that is generally what the high net asset families do. So the problem with this is that professional trustees want at least $1 million in liquid assets before they will take on clients. So what a lot of middle-class families have traditionally done is they'll name a sibling or another family member to be the trustee. That can create a lot of inter-family tension. It could be a big burden for that person, the family member who's been named to be the trustee. And it's really not the best way to go. So if you don't have $1 million, what are you going to do? So here's the answer. You're going to use a pool trust. It's known as a D4C in the Social Security Code. Congress created them back in 1993. Congress said all of these pool trusts have to be operated by a bona fide nonprofit, and they use a master trust agreement for all the participants. That master trust is like a big umbrella, and everybody enrolls underneath that big umbrella using something called a joinder agreement, which is just a basic legal agreement. Every beneficiary has a separate sub account, and money is pooled for cash and investment purposes, but everybody has their own account. Everybody has so many units of a investment portfolio, and at the end of every market day, the unit value goes up or down a few cents. And so everybody has their own separate account with their own separate money. The pool trust could be a good option because it's cheaper to set up than a standalone special needs trust. We have much lower costs as a nonprofit for both our setup fee and our ongoing trustee fees. I'm a licensed professional fiduciary, as is my colleague Ron Parks, who is our appointed trustee. So when you enroll with JLA Trust, you're getting the same high level of fiduciary oversight that you would be getting at a Wells Fargo trust division or any other professional or commercial trust organization. So we offer both the first party trust, the third party, I like to call them planning ahead. And then we have two kinds of planning ahead. One is an active option. That means it has at least $20,000 deposited right now. If you don't happen to have 20,000 bucks laying around, I understand. A lot of us are in that same position. So there is what we call the future funded option. And the future funded option is basically creating an empty vessel. And then much later, you're going to pour in liquid assets. So that could be money from a life insurance policy, the sale of a family home, inherited IRAs, 401ks, brokerage accounts. Any of those could be liquidated and then poured into the future funded third party special needs trust at a future date. So once the money is in there, what can it be used for? So it's very broad. We like to say we're all about improving quality of life and promoting independence. And that means different things to different people. But here's some examples of things that most of our clients use their trust money for. Certainly cell phone, internet, streaming, all that kind of day-to-day electronic life. And also, by the way, purchasing computers, tablets, cell phones. And then, of course, clothing and shoes, specialized shoes, stuff for the house, medical and dental expenses not covered by other health insurance, particularly dental and oral surgery. A lot of our clients come to us in middle age and they have not had good dental care for a number of reasons. And it's not unusual for people to spend $5,000-$10,000 just getting their mouth into good shape because oral health is so important for overall health. A much funner than going to the dentist is taking trips, vacations. You can, if you need an aid for behavioral or for any kind of personal support, trust funds could pay for the aid as well. In-home help that supplements that in-home the IHSS hours. A car, even if the beneficiary cannot drive themselves, the car can be put into the title. The title of the car can be under the trust, even if the person is not able to drive. And also a residence, but there needs to be enough money both to purchase a residence and for all the other things in life. We have a partnership with a really great financial services company called TrueLink. They are a for-profit company, but is very mission driven, and they're all about helping people with disabilities and helping elderly people, particularly those with dementia. They are the ones overseeing our investment accounts at Charles Schwab, and they're also the ones overseeing a prepaid restricted use Visa debit card that we use. And that Visa card is the main way in which we disperse funds from the trust to the card. We can also write checks. We write a lot of rent checks every month from people's trust accounts. We can also do electronic fund payment, but we cannot do things like Venmo or Zelle because we want a paper trail behind everything, and we want to build in a little extra time and anti-fraud. So we're not going to be paying any expenses through Venmo or PayPal or Zelle. I think I'll pause here before I get to CalABLE and just see if there's any comments or thoughts.
Of course, where there are, do you have to report opening an ABLE account?
Do you have to report it? No. But the IRS is the one governing it. And so the IRS shares its computer information with the Social Security Administration. So the Social Security Administration will find out that an ABLE account has been created.
My eldest son has severe mental illness, but has not been approved yet for SSI. Do I have to wait until he is approved before setting up a special needs trust?
No, you don't. But we would need probably a little more documentation about the nature of his mental illness. If someone's already getting SSI or SSDI, we don't need very much documentation because the government's already, done the due diligence.
Does JLA force quick sale of property to liquidate the estate into investments or allow property to be managed?
Right now, we're not able to manage property, so it would have to be sold. So when people get in that kind of a situation, they're probably going to need a standalone third-party special needs trust because it's a little more complex than what we're able to offer, and it takes more money and it costs more money because it takes more time.
Interesting. Trustees I interviewed said cars cannot go into the trust.
Well, the way it works is we carry a lien on any cars that are purchased with the trust money.
The special needs trust funds seem to be able to use like an ABLE account. If a beneficiary passes away, who gets the funds then? Does it go through probate tax? I guess those are two different questions. I'm sorry, Eliza.
The special needs trust funds seem to be able, yeah. So it's similar to the ABLE account that we're going to get into in a little more depth. The big difference is special needs trusts are under fiduciary oversight. So that means we have to follow the Uniform Prudent Investor Code in terms of investing the money. In terms of disbursements, we as fiduciaries have to make sure we're not doing anything that could hurt or impact negatively government benefits. So with the ABLE account, unless someone is conserved, that person has full access to their money after the age of 18. So the question about the beneficiary passes away, who gets the funds? So So we have different rules for our first party and our third party pool trust. With that first party, any first party trust, remember that Medicaid always has to get paid back. Um, we um, we have a right to retain a certain amount of the funds as a nonprofit providing the service. So for the first party, we can retain 10 to 50%. And then we have to pay off the Medi-Cal bill. With third party, we retain 10%, and then 90% goes to the named heirs in the joinder agreement. So it does not go through probate. On our joinder agreement, it says if the beneficiary passes away and there's money left, where should that money go? And heirs could be listed, nonprofits could be listed. It's totally up to you who you list, but the special needs trust kind of lives separately than the rest of the estate once the funds are in that special needs trust.
That's also the major reason to try and get a trust set up before the parent passes away. A third party trust is always preferable because there's no Medi-Cal payback. And so the reason that you almost never see funds from a first party trust go to heirs is because that Medi-Cal bill is almost always too high for it.
Are there upper limits on the amount? No, you could have 10 million, 20 million in a special needs trust. No upper limits. But again, remember, it's under fiduciary oversight. What happens? What was that question? When the beneficiary moves out of state, we can definitely keep providing services. Out of country, it kind of depends on the country. The problem is if you move out of the country and you're getting SSI, they will cut off your SSI. So you can't keep getting SSI if you move out of the country. You can keep getting Social Security retirement, but you can't get SSI. Ethan, did you have a specific question?
Yeah, I just mean like a lot of families, Jewish families in our area end up moving to Israel. So what if that happens? What happens to the trust? All the money in the trust.
Well, the problem is Medi-Cal, if you break it, Medi-Cal is still gonna come calling, even though you've moved out of the country. I mean, I think realistically you would try to spend it down as much as you could. But like I said, the big problem is you lose the SSI when you move out of the country.
Right. But sometimes when someone becomes a citizen of another country, then they have their own version of that.
Yeah.
But you have to figure out what to do with all the money in the trust, because you can't, if it's limited to spending stuff locally in California, then you're.
No, you could spend it anywhere in the world.
Oh, you can. Okay.
I mean, we have a lot of clients, who like in the summertime, we have a client and her aunt have been, I think, like in Nicaragua for the last month. And that's fine. They're spending their trust money in Nicaragua. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Susanna, can the estate funds distributed? I'm not sure I understand the question. Can the estate funds distributed into my special needs account? I don't know. Alexander, can you read it for me? I just lost
She's
that
just
question.
wondering, and we were just talking about this. She's wondering basically, can she leave the special needs trust to whoever she wants? And the answer is, if it's a third party trust set up by the person, like their family, then yes, no problem. And if it's a first party trust, no. The next question is, in the role of fiduciary, could JLA open a CalABLE account as an authorized legal representative for the beneficiary? Or if there is already a CalABLE account, would JLA take over as the ALR?
We are only a fiduciary over the money in the trust. For us to take on the separate authorized legal representative, we'd have to have a separate agreement for that. So that would be more like if we became conservator of the person and conservator of the estate. So that would be a separate fee-based program.
You'll probably cover this with ABLE. Can I directly pay for my adult son's rent as opposed to using his SSI funds and not be penalized 1/3?
Yes, but because the rent rules are changing anyway for SSI, if he's paying market value, you're going to be able to use your SSI again without that penalty.
Okay.
All right, so let me jump back in for the tail end. So CalABLE is California's ABLE program. The ABLE program is a national program that was created, gosh, I think about 10 or 12 years ago. It's based on the 529 college savings program. So as we know, with SSI, you're not allowed to have more than $2,000 at any one time. With the ABLE accounts, you can have up to whatever the IRS gift tax exemption is for that calendar year. For 2024, the gift tax exemption is $18,000. That is the max you can put in any calendar year. There's an exception for people who are earning money. You can put in like another 20,000 of earned income. You know, over the course of 6 years, you can go all the way up to 100,000 without impacting your SSI. Let's see. So some of the basics with CalABLE. The disabling condition must have been formally diagnosed before the age of 26. That is going up to age 46 in just 2 years. Unlike the 529 college savings accounts, where a beneficiary can have multiple accounts, with the ABLE accounts, only one ABLE account per social security number. The beneficiary is going to always be the account owner. It can be opened by a lot of different people, the parent, legal guardian, someone who's been appointed the power of attorney, or a rep payee. The rep payee is new, by the way. So if you are the rep payee for somebody else's SSI, you are able to open up a CalABLE account. And accounts are asset protected, but you cannot really shelter income. So basically what that's saying is if you're earning income, you can put the money in, but then you should take it out. So more like a checking account. So what can you use the money in the ABLE account for? So it's also very broad: food, education, housing, transportation, healthcare. As somebody pointed out, right now there are definitely advantages for using your CalABLE account to pay rent. That advantage more or less goes away October 1st with the change in SSI rules. So it really depends whether someone is paying the market rate value for their rental. So you cannot sign up for CalABLE in banks or other financial institutions like credit unions. You can only do it online. And this is the information you need. And you have to be able to link it to a bank account. So the bank account is how money is going to flow in and out. They also have started using a TrueLink card, similar to the TrueLink card that we use. They have a lot more restrictions on their TrueLink card than we do, because we open and close spending categories on an individual basis. And they have more rigid categories that they use for everyone enrolled in the program. So, for example, if someone is a smoker, we will open up smoke shops. CalABLE does not open up smoke shops. So those kinds of distinctions. So the good news is ABLE accounts and special needs trusts can work together very nicely. People are saying to use the ABLE account more like a checking account. It's also a good place for people to give gifts of money to someone with a disability. And then the special needs trust can become more like your savings account or your nest egg, money that you're really saving for later in life, for older age, for, kind of retirement age and beyond. But there's no penalties to transfer money between a special needs trust and an ABLE account. So the big picture is that people should really have, every beneficiary or rep payee should have a checking account just to be able to accept those checks that come from the US Treasury, whether it's SSI or SSDI. Then a CalABLE account for when that checking account starts to approach $2,000, and also work earnings. And then that third party special needs trust, like I said, is really that long-term savings account for bigger projects, for health issues, for kind of unanticipated expenses down the road. I know it was complicated, it went through a lot. We have a lot of great information that Alexandra has put on our website. Here's my email. We encourage you to look at our Facebook page and my phone number. The best way to reach me is by email, because quite often people will call me and I'm not able to answer the phone because I'm in other meetings or appointments. Okay.
Do we have any additional questions before?
If you want, yeah. If you want to unmute, you can ask a question.
So where can we get your email?
It was just up. I can put it in chat. I also generally include it when I send a follow-up with the
Okay.
slides tomorrow. So
Oh, thank you so much.
Sure. I know everyone's got kind of a little different situation. Somewhat similar, somewhat different. Aliza had a question. Wait. Lisa, what's an LIHTC? She's still there? Eliza?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute. A low-income housing tax credit building.
Oh, that's great. Is it,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's
sorry.
not Section 8, right?
It's not Section 8. They will take, I understand they will take vouchers, but he doesn't have one. But we got into a very lovely building, brand new, and under the low-income housing, and I was able to become his live-in provider.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
that's what helped us to qualify, because he wasn't able to qualify on his own. So he has to be gifted money to meet the amount that you need to have.
Sure.
It's such a weird dynamic, the way they have it.
I know.
Yeah. So part of the rent, his money is not enough to pay the full rent of
Right.
himself. So that's why I'm trying to figure out how to, use part of the gift money to pay for it and not get in trouble, to be penalized.
Right.
with
So
this.
in that
Yeah.
case, yeah, I think if you can put that gift money in the ABLE account, and then
Yeah.
in your case, paying for his rent out of the ABLE account makes sense, because that's a subsidized rent arrangement in your low income housing.
Yes.
That's not market, it's not the same as a market, price for an apartment. So,
But that
yeah.
still would be qualify, right? The only problem with the ABLE thing, though, is because when you do the withdrawals regarding rent, it's supposed to be used in that month. So
The
if it
same
goes
calendar month,
right,
right? Yeah.
so if it goes over into the first, when the rent is actually due, you know the money just doesn't come in those like 2 days, 3 days time to pay the
Yeah.
rent. So it's a struggle.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's where you definitely want to prepay the rent. Yeah.
Oh, so do it in the prepay part, because someone else said though the rent has to be due, but if it's not due because you're prepaying it, so it's really trying to like mess you up in it. It seems like they want to trick you.
I trying to thread that needle is pretty tricky. I mean, if you put that gift money into a special needs trust, I mean, we in general, we send out rent checks like the 22nd of every month ahead of time.
Okay,
So make
so you
sure that they get it. Yeah.
to get it right.
And
Okay,
that seemed, I mean, we've had pretty good luck with that.
okay, great. Well, we have the ABLE set up already, but I do need to set up a special needs trust, the third party. So I will be in
Yeah,
touch.
you sound like
Yes.
a good match, actually.
Oh, thank you.
And Ethan, would you talk about the tax issues involved? So, the biggest issue with the tax is that money that's in a trust, once it's growing with investment income, that's going to be taxed at regular capital gains rate. And it's going to be taxed at the trust rate, which is very high, like around 40%. So the thing is, most of our beneficiaries, because they have low income, they're still able to take the standard deduction, and they haven't had much in the way of having to pay much taxes. If they do have to pay capital gains taxes, that can be paid out of the special needs trust. And also special needs trust funds can be used for tax preparation.
And that tax is on the interest?
Yeah, it's just on the interest.
Okay.
Yeah. The only time when there's kind of a tax on distributions is with Section 8. Section 8 counts some distributions from a trust as income. And then with Section 8, you pay 30% of your income as rent. So some people on Section 8 can see their rent go up because of the trust disbursements. I know it's
What's
just
the
the
current
problem.
rate of
Yeah, it's
what's the current
complicated.
rate of return?
Of our trust, of
Yeah.
our investments, they're doing anywhere from 4 to 8%. They're like they're basically like retirement accounts. Oh, so somebody wanted to know about our fees. That's a good people. That's a, and I should probably add that as a slide. Hang on a second. I want to show our fee schedule. I have to, so right on our website, we have our fee schedule. And I can't promise it'll remain static because, we have to deal with cost of living like everybody else. So here's our costs and fees. So even though we're a nonprofit, we're a fee-based nonprofit. So the idea is our fees are below market. So there's our trustee fees are in these tiers, and then our financial partner TrueLink also takes an annual fee of 1%. So, and we max out at 1%. So the most anybody will ever pay in fees is 2% of the assets that are in the trust. For the tax filings, we provide the tax document, and then we can give you some ideas of different CPAs that we've worked with, but we don't file directly. Any other questions? Okay.
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Will each account within the JLA third-party pool trust have its own tax ID number?
Yes, and the third party, they have their own EINs.
Okay, thank
That
you.
is not the case with the first party. Yeah.
Okay.
How many members do you currently have?
We are at like 195 and we're getting very close to 200. You might have seen we had a very nice article in the Jewish Journal this week. So we've got over 12 million in assets under advisement, and we're just going to grow. So we invite you to join us if it's a good fit. I mean, like the person who asked questions about sometimes people with more complicated investments or more complicated like property own holdings might not be the best match for the pool trust.
Do we know offhand, this is a question, I don't think we can provide the names of the, do we know, we certainly don't know offhand the CPAs that do the tax filings, but do we know our breakdown of first party versus third party trusts that we're managing?
Oh, it's like 75-80% first party and the rest are, third party. But it changes. It's very dynamic because a lot of people with the first party are like they're middle-aged adults who've been living on SSI for decades, and all of a sudden they get a legal settlement or an unplanned inheritance of like $50,000. So those people will go through that money, in a few years. They'll run out of money, and then unfortunately they're no longer part of the pool trust. And then we have new people coming in all the time. So it's very much a dynamic process. All righty. Well, I really appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us. Thank you so much. And be great to email and follow up with those of you who want more information.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Michelle.
everybody. Sure.
Thank you so much.